Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So today we are going to cover our new release, which is ModelPort 4, and the benefits and the new features. So let's get started. So let's talk a little first about the agenda and also introduce myself. My name is Tom Simmons. I am the Business Director and BIM Consultant here at Archicad Consulting. We're going to cover a lot today. There's a lot of new features to review, and also for those who are maybe new to ModelPort or thinking about ModelPort, we'll have a lot of content here that will be important for you as well. So we're going to first start with how some of the expanded options, import options that are available in ModelPort 4. The new feature, really important, which is to add light to imported objects. We've added some new editing options to improve that as well. We're now able to import scenes from FBX and SKP. We've expanded and made the licensing more flexible. And we've also added the ability to manage your licenses much more easily as well. And we'll then talk about how to demo and get started. And finally, questions and answers. If you have any question at any point in time during the presentation, I want to invite you to go ahead, enter that question into the control panel as you're thinking about it. No, don't wait till the end. Go and enter that in, and then we'll take that at the end of the presentation. So I'd like to first start to talk about how we've expanded Archicad's import options. Now, for those of you who may be new to ModelPort, one of the things that we set out to do with ModelPort when we originally started was to give Archicad users more access to more objects on the web by expanding Archicad's access to many more formats that were not available in Archicad. And as we know, there is a rich world of objects out there. But we also, for those of you who've delved into the world of objects, know there are many, many formats of models that you can download. And these are 4 examples here. 2 online content providers, BIM Object and 3D Warehouse, are very popular, have multitude of formats available. And Viking, of course, and Herman Miller, 2 of many of thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of manufacturers out there providing their variations of formats as well. So what ModelPort does is it basically offers 15 import options, of which 9 are formats that are not available in ModelPort defaults. The ones you see up there at the top, we have updated the SketchUp format, which we'll talk about in a second. We have the new Autodesk 3ds Max format. And we've also updated the Autodesk formats, which are FBX, OBJ, DAE, 3ds, and DXF. And it's important to update these periodically, in fact yearly, because we see regular updates from these software developers. And so that's what we're doing this time around. And then for those of you who don't know about the import from Archicad option, this is really important as well, because if we don't have certain formats available in ModelPort, such as IFC, Rhino, or Revit RFA, then you can use the standard import process in Archicad, import that Revit object, place it into the floor plan, select it, and then use the import from Archicad option in ModelPort to bring that Revit object into ModelPort for further editing, management, and optimization. And I'll talk about that in more detail with an example in a minute. So first, let's talk about the new Autodesk 3ds Max loader. So this enables us to bring in 3ds Max files. So kind of as you'll see an example here, we click the Open 3D Model menu. We select the file, and it brings it into the ModelPort editing and viewer interface. If I wanted to edit this object, I'd click the Material option here in the upper left. And then I go over to the items list, select that material, in this case, add a texture to it because I don't want it to be black, I'd like it to be leather. And then that adds in those straps and the handles and changes the color of that and some of the beading around that as well. Now, one of the other things that you might want to do is to be able to, control and adjust UV vertical and horizontal, which you can do within the 3D Max format now as well. And if you would need to decrease that polygon count, like we're able to do with so many other objects, we can do that with this 3ds Max File 2. In this case, within the 3D window, we can select certain elements like these brass beads or the studs down below. And now we can change that to poly reduction. This is really important because a lot of objects you bring in, like this one, are high polygon count. And also, many of the objects, it's not the entire object that's high polygon count, it's just a couple things. So in this case, we've selected 2 elements. Those 2 elements actually are the majority of the performance issue. And by selecting those, doing polygon reduction, we're going to see a reduction of quite a bit here. And if we want to take it a step further, we go down to the decimation steps there at the bottom far right, where the arrow is pointing to. And we can change that to a 3, a 4, or 5. As we increase it, it decreases the polygon count, but possibility of degradation too. But for small things like this, probably won't see a lot of that degradation. But nonetheless, we've already reduced it quite a bit and improved the performance of this one object. The SketchUp 2024 loader is also now updated. I should say the SketchUp loader is now updated to 2024 format. And that's important because this, SketchUp, or Trimble now owns it, continues to update this every year. So in the bottom left here, you're seeing the result of importing that SketchUp model for this light and placing it into Archicad. What you're seeing very clearly here is the messiness of the graphics for both the 2D plan view of this as well as the 3D model view. On the right, you'll see when we import this into ModelPort, it's very clean. 2D graphic looks clean, the 3D looks clean, everything looks great. Put it in Archicad, it's going to look exactly the same. Now, the importance of that 2024 format is changes that have occurred at 3D Warehouse. You no longer have the ability to select the different formats like it used to have, like it's like the 2023, 2021, 2019. No longer available. It's just whatever format is the most recent format for that particular object. So that's been a big change. So that's important to note. Also, if you've got files coming in from interior designers, consultants, or Revit users, then knowing that you can, if they're using the 2024 version of SketchUp, you'll be able to import their models and using ModelPort. My favorite new feature of Archicad is the ability to build, ModelPort. My favorite new feature of ModelPort is the ability to add light to imported objects. If you're not familiar with adding light to objects in Archicad, of import objects, it's not easy, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how you would do this in Archicad without ModelPort. Then I'm going to show you how easy it is to do in ModelPort. So first, we have default options. There's 2 of them that we do in Archicad typically to add light to an imported object. The first is a pretty simple one. It's easy. There's no GDL required. You simply pick a light source from the lamp selections or settings under electrical, and then you can select things like IES light, parallel light, spotlight, others. Place that in plan, coordinate that with the light, select it, group it together, and you can work with it that way. That's easy. The problem with it is you can't save it to the favorites. If you wanted to put it in your library, you can't because the light and the object are separate. If you export it to a third-party renderer, it may have issues as well because they're separate elements. And importantly is the fact that if you're importing a curved surface like this is showing here, you've got that issue of the messy 2D graphics and 3D model. Now the other option or a problem, of course, or I should say the other option, is to add light using GDL. That's programming coding on the back end. I'm not even going to go into what that would take because it's a lot of work and you really need to be an expert to do that. I don't see this very often, but this is a definite ability to do that. But again, to add the light to the object is really, really difficult to make it one cohesive object. And that's the problem we're solving today with ModelPort. So let me describe the options using ModelPort, and they're very easy, to add that light and then be able to use it as one object in Archicad. So ModelPort also has two options in terms of importing objects, right? As I described earlier. First is to go download that object from the 3D warehouse, wherever you might want to download it from. If the file format is supported in ModelPort, go to Open 3D Model, bring that in. The other option is to use import from Archicad. So as I talked about earlier, let's say, for example, you've downloaded a Revit format from BIM Object, very popular source for manufacturer objects. It only has a Revit object there, maybe a Rhino 2, maybe a MicroStation, but you're really thinking, well, maybe Revit would be best. So you download that, you import that from you download that, and then you bring that into Archicad and place it into Archicad. Once you've done that, you can use the import from Archicad option in ModelPort to bring that into the ModelPort editing environment. But what you figure out once you've placed it in Archicad and you view it in the Archicad 3D window is that the light's upside down. And this is something that happens very commonly. You bring a model in from even sources like BIM Object, which are very trusted, very good, but manufacturer forgot to turn the object the other way. it's on the floor, and that top should be on the little holder for the attachment for the light for the ceiling should be the opposite. So you need to transform it and turn it upside down. So we're going to bring that into ModelPort, select it. We're going to select that import from Archicad. In ModelPort, we're going to select the -Z up. You can see it in the bottom right corner. Once we've done that, then we're able to then add light to this as well. So what we're going to do is, the next step, we're going to actually use the first light I talked about. And now we're going to attach or change the subtype of it. So up till today, if you were using ModelPort and you imported an object, it was always an object, okay? It would appear in the object settings. Starting today, you can choose that subtype option, change it to a lamp, and now it will appear as it shows in the bottom left there of these images. In the tool settings, you double click that lamps tool, it opens up the lamp settings, and now you'll see the light as a real light. And so also, because you've changed the subtype, it now enables you to add a light. So previously, if we right-clicked add item, it would be material. Now we can add a light. So now we add that light. It's positioned, at the top of the light originally, and then we just kind of moved it down using the reposition option there, and position it to the place we want it to be. Then we need to edit the light type and its parameters. So by selecting the light in the items list, we go down to the light options there in the properties. And now we can select the type to be point, directional, spot, or general. And by doing that, we can change the type of light it is. And then we can control information such as color, shadow casting, radius, alpha, beta, angle fall off, the distance 1 and 2 of the light, and then distance fall off. All this would have been impossible to control within the object before without doing GDL. Now we have one object, we can save it to favorites, we can put it in our office library, and we no longer have to worry about it just being an object that has no light information. It's now a true light that when we do a rendering is going to look like this. This rendering was created using the internal Cineware by Maxon's standard rendering engine. As you can see, the light is casting like you would typically expect it to, right onto the counter, onto the floor, creating the space, lighting it up. And that's the whole point here. It's a really nice way of doing this. Let's talk about the next new feature in ModelPort, and that is improved editing. We've added a lot of new options in ModelPort to help you with the editing process. That's always been an important aspect for what we are trying to do. And what we're also trying to do is to listen to our users. So many of our users have been telling us that they would like to have the ability to snap to floor and snap to ceiling when they bring these objects in. So we've added a new option called bottom offset. All you do is type 0 to snap it to floor. Very simple, very easy. Because if you type 0 in, then when you go to place it, it'll automatically be placing to 0, which is typically your floor level. You can always change that, of course, but that's what that's relationship to. With the ceiling, if the original light that you opened up, if that plane was at the bottom of that pendant, well, you can now do a minus 3 feet 2 to move to the top of that pendant, and now it's snapping to ceiling. So real simple, real easy for you to be able to adjust that snap point. Also, what we've done is we've added the ability to freeze dimension changes. Okay, so it reorients the information within the model. What do I mean by that? So here's a good example. Brought this fireplace in from manufacturer, wherever it came from, and it was 348 feet 7 inches. Okay, obviously way out of scale for what this should be. So what would you do? You'd click into the ModelPort editing window. You'd click the height, interactive height option there. Brings up the rescale object dialog. You type in, change it to 8 feet 10, like you see in the middle. Go OK. That's all great. Now it's rescaled it. What I also want you to notice is the percent of what's changed there. In the above, the original one, 348, it was 100%, right? It's 100% scale in relationship to that 348 7-inch height. In the rescale, because we changed that height down so much, right? It's now rescaled to 2.534%. It's probably a metric before, I'm guessing, I don't know. But that looks like it's kind of what that maybe was. Well, that's a problem because, now that relationship of that particular percent along with other potential elements within this ModelPort object are in relationship to that percent. So if we hit and click the freeze transform button, what we're doing is we're resetting and reorienting that percent and other values within this model to that new height. So you see below at the bottom there, we hit the freeze transform, it's now 100%. It's 100% in relationship to 8 feet 10. That means if I change now the 8 feet 10 down to 7 feet 4, that changes to maybe 92% or something. That's really important. It's been a big ask by our users, and we now have that in here. Very simple to use, but very important when dealing with these imported objects. Another is being able to rescale your texture UV map values in relationship to the Archicad material. So what happens here very often, you bring in an object like this old car, and you want to be able to add a material to it. So you add the material, new material. That new material works great if you're using the ModelPort material options. You can place material in there with a texture. It's all scaled perfectly, looks great. But once you change it to the Archicad material option, you select from a list there, which you can do, and I'll show you that in a second. All of a sudden, it rescales it based upon whatever the Archicad materials options is set at, and potentially so out of scale that you don't even see the texture anymore. So let's watch this process. We're going to first add a texture in. So I'm going to go up to the top of my items list, add item, and add material. I'm going to go down this material. I'm going to change it to be carpet, because we want to put carpet material on the bottom floorboard of this car. And then once I've done that, I'm now going to go to the Archicad material. So I'm going to select that. It's going to bring up my list. I'm going to select Textile 01 for my carpet, which is some sort of carpet that we've picked as a texture. Go OK. And now I'm going to drag that on the desired surface. Now, one of the new things with ModelPort 4.0 is the ability to drag and drop on surfaces. So you can see what's happening here is recognizing the different surfaces. So very interactive. I just drag it onto the surface. And now you can see that right now the material doesn't show up. So if I go down here and I click the scale to world, we can see now the material in the background there. If I zoom in a little bit, you can really see the texture of it. And so those options down there at the bottom now under UV Adjust, okay, allow us, when we have an element selected, we can check that, turn it on or off. We can scale it to world. We can also change the scale. And now this will help you when you're dealing with Archicad materials that are with new materials that you're adding to an object, and you want to make sure the scale is working in relationship to that object. Another potential option that one of our potential issue that one of our users pointed out to us and we created a solution for, and that is when you bring in objects, sometimes because of the triangulation that's occurring coming into Archicad can result in issues that may cause it to degrade or may cause it to even disappear. This bumper is a great example of that. So what happened was that there were some problems and issues with this, so we added an option for triangulation. So if we go down to triangulation there at the bottom right, we're going to disable that. And once we do that and then click the update button, it's going to reappear within Archicad. So again, it's another solution that we keep adding in these new mesh operations and options within here, so that when people have models that have issues, you've got some different resources and tools to help you solve those problems. Here's one more. This model, as you can see, was very helpful for us to use as an example. So one more problem this model had was a line down the middle of the surface. And this happens very commonly. I'm sure maybe many of you have even seen this with models you've brought in to Archicad or to ModelPort, and it has a line in the middle of a surface, and it shouldn't be there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called normals. We're going to recalculate that so that that line goes away. So we're going to go over here. First, we're going to select the hood. And then we're going to go down here to recalculate normal where that red arrow is at. Click that, check that, so it turns on. We can also adjust the degree there if we need to. But you can see just by turning it on, the line goes away. And so having done that, fixed at ModelPort, not fixed in Archicad yet. And for those of you who have been using ModelPort, you know that you now need to click the update button. For those of you who have not used ModelPort before, whenever you make a change within ModelPort, in order for that change to go through into Archicad, you need to click the update button. So we're going to go up there. We're going to click that update button. And when we do that, it's now going to update within Archicad as well. Another new feature is an interactive drag to scale. Now, I really like this for a variety of reasons. Yes, it's interactive for scale, but imagine you've got a bunch of trees, maybe a forest around a cabin or a house you're doing, or just a neighborhood, whatever it is, and you want to add a bunch of trees in there, and you want to kind of scale those trees up and down interactively to kind of create, sort of just a more, rather than going to each tree and trying to do that. So this is kind of like twin motion, okay, where I can select a tree or a bunch of trees, and I can use an interactive option here to just interactively move it up or down, change its scale in 2D or 3D. You can select multiple trees, it doesn't have to be trees, it could be anything, it could be any kind of object. But you can use this interactive kind of drag scale option. We're continuing, you'll see over the course of the next year, even more and more and more editing options now that we really have this interactive environment that we're using for an editor. It's enabling us to really start building this out into a much, much more powerful editor that you'll be seeing in the coming year. Okay, the next feature I want to talk about for ModelPort 4.0 is the ability to be able to import scenes from FBX and SKP files. So why is this important? So if you've ever worked with a SketchUp file, or if you've gotten a SketchUp file from a consultant or an interior designer, or just downloaded it from 3D Warehouse, or you're working with someone with an FBX file, which is the same thing, they're both going to have scenes that are available for you if you want to import those in. Now, Archicad does not support bringing in those camera views, right? But ModelPort now does. So with a SketchUp and an FBX model, I can actually go and bring in what you can see here. If I were to go to 3D Warehouse, and I were to go to select an object in 3D Warehouse, and I were to view that object, so it has the interactive 3D environment, it would allow me to also toggle on the scenes, which is one of the controls you can see there on the right-hand side. And you can see some of the scenes there, like corner perspective, approach, side gate approach, backyard gate, from gate, etc. Well, now, when I bring that into ModelPort, it brings those same exact scenes into our ModelPort editor in the items list there. You can see the cameras that are brought in there. And those are interactive. They're interactive in the 3D environment, where you can see a camera, and you can click on that camera, and it will go to that view. And they're interactive in the items list. So here's an example of how that works. If we go to the camera and click that, it's going to automatically zoom and animate to that. If we double click it in the items list, it will zoom and animate to that as well. So this is a really powerful new feature. We've had numerous people request this because, you know, when you bring a model into Archicad, into ModelPort, it can be somewhat, you know, if it's a big model, you know, navigating around it might be kind of difficult. You may want to be able to get around to specific areas that whoever you brought it in from has set up for you. So you can review that very easily based upon what they set up. Well, now you're going to be able to do that. Now you may also be asking a question, can I bring these same camera views that have been imported in to ModelPort into Archicad? Not yet. However, I was just talking with our developers today, and they are actually working on that. So sometime later this year, hopefully, we'll have an updated version where you'll be able to actually also bring those same camera views right into Archicad and then develop camera views in Archicad. So we're continuing to develop, continuing to refine this. Now, in addition to that, you also have the ability to control some settings for the views as well. You can adjust the field of view. So for example, if you want it to be more of a zoomed in, I could change the percent there, or zoomed out, I could change that. So you can adjust the percent for the field of view. I can also reorganize those imported scenes. So those imported scenes, when they came in, were organized kind of chaotically. I don't know what the organization was there exactly. So we took that, reordered them into an alphabetical organization. And you can see that was pretty easy to do, just to move, drag them up and down. And then, of course, you have the same editing options you have with anything else. You can duplicate those, you can rename them, you can delete them. You may be asking, can you create a new camera view? Not yet, but that is coming as well. So this is our first step to bring in these scenes and turn them into camera views with the ModelPort. And the next steps will be, of course, to be able to add more flexibility for you to be able to create your own camera views and also bring those into Archicad. We also have preferences that we've set up, options for you. The first is if you go to the little sprocket button there in the upper right-hand side of ModelPort and open up the ModelPort preferences, you're going to be able to edit the camera transition speed, as you can see there, so you can increase or decrease that. And then also, if you want to hide the cameras, you bring them in, all those cameras that are in your 3D window are there. If you want to just turn those off, if you just go to your view settings, there's a little button there in the bottom left of the view. If you click that, this view settings dialog appears. Just uncheck the show cameras and it will turn those off. We're also very excited to announce an expanded and more flexible licensing options for ModelPort, something that we've had numerous clients ask about over the last several years. And so today we're going to be introducing our switch and floating licenses. So this is really important both for smaller office or single practitioners as well as for the larger teams. So we do still have our standard license. If you own a standard license today, which is for one computer, it does not have quite the flexibility of moving from one computer to another very as easily as the other two will, but it certainly provides you that ability to have a computer, a specific license for one computer. And you continue using that, continue updating that. We're not doing away with that license at all. It does actually fit a specific purpose for a lot of people, and so we'll continue to support that moving forward along with these other two license options. The switch license is something that we're introducing because we have numerous people because of the changes in the workflow, right, that are working between home and office, maybe going from home to the project site or office to project site and moving between different computers, but they only want one license of ModelPort. So we're introducing a switch license, which is basically the ability for you to be able to have one license, but using our cloud license option now to be able to move that license very easily between the different computers, and I'll explain how that works in just a second. And then the other option that we're adding is the floating license. This is something that we've had both small to mid to large firms ask for because maybe they have 10 people in a firm. They want maybe 3, maybe 5 people to have access to ModelPort. And so, before we'd have to have everybody buy a license. We didn't really have the flexibility to move licenses very easily between different people in the office. Now we do. The floating license will enable you to basically quit Archicad, license returns to the cloud. Someone else opens Archicad on a different computer and they grab that license. And we can also do it manually, which I'll talk about in a second as well. And the next step, which is really important, and that is the ability to be able to manage licenses, because with these new license options, the floating and the switch license, and also important for even your standard license, we really want to enhance and build more options for you to be able to manage your licenses. So first, the standard licenses. If you log into your account, if you have multiple licenses, you can see those license keys listed there. You'll see the expiration dates. You'll see a download link there. So a very organized, much more succinct place, including resources for you to help get started, and then of course related subscriptions to those licenses. For the floating license, we really need to build a much more robust system, and I'm happy to say we have. You can of course click the button above for license information. You can, if you want to add additional licenses, you simply type in the number there, quantity, click add licenses, and it'll take you to a new page to finish that purchase, and you'll be able to add those quickly and easily to that. Again, if you need to cancel a license, it does happen from time to time, you can go select your license here. If you want to just cancel 1 or 2, enter that in, and then that will also reduce your licenses. And then as you can see below, much like the standard, it lists the number of licenses you have, the license keys that are associated with it, and the related orders below. So how does this work? How do you activate the switch and floating license? Is that different from the standard? Well, the answer is it's exactly the same process as the standard license with a few additional features that will help you. So first, if you're going to activate a switch or floating license, you're going to use the same process as the standard. You're going to go to the ModelPort menu. You're going to go to License Control. And you're going to, this dialog is going to come up. You're going to click the Activate button. That's going to bring up this Activate License dialog that you can see on the far right. At that point, you're going to click the Activate the License Key option there. In the middle left, you're going to enter in your key there toward the bottom. You're going to enter in your email, the two that are associated with that you'll get an email from, obviously, when you purchase it, and click Activate License Key. Now your activation is successful, and you're ready to go. Now you will see at the bottom there that says you can start the floating license session, or if it's a switch license, that, okay? And you will then have an OK button that you need to click, and then it will take you to this next screen. Okay, so as you can see there, it says ModelPort is running in demo mode because it doesn't actually start running with the floating license or the switch license until you click Start Online Session, because it hasn't pulled that license from the cloud yet to your computer. That is the power of what we're introducing now. You have the ability for you now to pull that cloud license and to release that cloud license, and you can do it automatically or manually. So first, you'll click the Start Online Session, and if you need to release that license, you click the Stop Session button. And you can see also where it says Floating Mode Pool below in the sort of information. If you have a switch license, it will not show Floating Mode Pool, it'll show Floating Mode Switch, or actually license type switch, and I think that might disappear floating mode below. I don't remember exactly. But in other words, it'd be a little slightly different there for switch, but pretty much the same. You'll also see at the bottom there where you can also start an offline session. This has been a question that's been asked by numerous people, is to be able to have offline sessions in case you're going to the mountains, you're going on a cruise, someplace where maybe you want an internet connection for a period of time, and you want to be able to have that license available to you. So we now added a button there that says Start Offline Session. It will then bring up a dialog. You can see there just to the right of it where you can select the day. So if you're going to be gone for 7 days of vacation, select 7 days. If you're gone for 10 days of vacation, well, you get 7 days and then you have to do it at some point in time again. But nonetheless, you will have that ability now to use that license as you want to. Now, I talked a little bit about the ability to auto start and to release these licenses. So in that dialog, there is a checkbox for auto start online session. If that is checked, which it is by default, then every time you open Archicad, it'll automate the license capture for your session. And then when you quit Archicad, it will automatically release that license back to the cloud. So it automates that for you. You don't have to think about it. It's really nice, very simple. Now, what happens if you are working and your teammate comes up and says, I need a license, okay? There's no more licenses on the server. Well, you can click the Stop Session button, and then that will automatically release that back to the server. And you can, of course, start an online session to start a new session. These are two manual ways of doing it. Why you would want to do that is you've unchecked the auto start. So in other words, if I uncheck the auto start, then I'm going to be manually grabbing that license and then manually releasing that license. So if you just want to keep it automated, you do the automated part, it'll automatically grab that license every time. Now let's say that you don't know who has a license in your office, and you've got 3 licenses with 10 people, and you want someone to release that license. Here's how you do it. If you click the little button that says Go to License Portal, it's going to bring up a little login page with your ID or email and your license key. You click Refresh with Server. It's going to show you all of the licenses that are available for your team. It's going to show you what licenses are in use and what licenses are free to be used. So if I had, let's say for example, there were no licenses available here, but I knew I could see here that, Sarah was using the license, and she was sitting next to me. I could just reach over and say, Sarah, can you release that license? And then I'll grab that license from her by using that manual start session. So really nice kind of interactive way for you to be able to get a quick view of your licenses, a quick view of who is using the licenses, and then understanding how you can use that license pool within your firm. So how do you get started? How do you demo ModelPort? Let's talk about that next. If you want to access ModelPort, well, first you can go to the ModelPort information by going to archivist.com/ModelPort, and then obviously you can go through our new features. You can go through the overall features of ModelPort, as well as all kinds of information that we have there. When you're ready to download it, just click the ModelPort menu there, go to Download Demo, and then this page will come up, and then you can enter your email in, click Download Now, and it will start to, it will send you to a page where you can select if I'm Archicad 27 or Archicad 26, whatever version you're on, are you Mac or you Windows, and then it will download the appropriate files for you to then add to your Archicad product. And then finally is the pricing for our 3 versions. Like everything it is these days, we had to increase it a little bit here starting in middle of 2024. It's been a couple of years since we've done that, so we do have a little price increase on the standard license. And then of course we've got the new pricing for the switch and the floating licenses. For new users, to go purchase one, you're going to go to the URL link below, which is archvista.com/modelport/pricing, or just go to archvista.com and select ModelPort and go to purchase. Oh, and you can also contact us if you would like to discuss questions at the email and the phone below. For current users, prices are increasing. This price you're seeing for the standard license will increase starting on August 1st. Now, that said, if your renewal doesn't come up until December, then your price increase you will not see that until December. If you would like to discuss for your own firm or if you'd like to discuss your account and opportunities to switch or move from to a switch or a floating license, also feel free to contact us in the information below. We have numerous clients right now who have reached out to us and want to move to a floating license and also want to move to a switch license. Like, I'm actually really pleased with the number of clients now who have had a second license that they want to now just use the switch license with. So yeah, so just contact us. We can certainly talk through questions about this. Everybody has a little bit different situation, right? In terms of how it might apply to your firm. So we're here to help answer those questions and see what might work best for you and your team. So I know I've covered a lot. So I want to open this up to questions. We've got some time here to take questions and to help you hopefully answer a little bit about how this would help your workflow. Our details again there, if you want to go to learn more about ModelPort, is at archvista.com/ModelPort. Our email, info@archvista.com, and the phone 800-522-0554. So with that, go ahead and enter your questions into the control panel, and let me take a look at those, and let's get started with the questions.